Life has a way of wearing on you. The optimism we are all born with gradually fades away the more we experience. Failures and misfortunes can add up and have a tremendous impact on our outlook of the world, and even more detrimental, it can weigh on our mental health and impact our sense of self-worth. Where are you at in life right now? Are you happy with your job? Have you achieved the goals you set for yourself? Did you fail miserably, or were those goals within reach only for you to narrowly miss achieving them? Or did you never even have a chance because those goals were unrealistic and you really didn't have the drive to achieve them? How does this make you feel? Has this taken a toll on you? Has this made you jaded? Have you slipped into apathy? This is where Kaiju No. 8 begins. Kafka Hibino has a well-paying menial job cleaning up the remains of dead kaiju that have been killed by the defense force. Due to his expertise and work ethic, he is routinely tasked with clearing out the most disgusting part of the kaiju, the intestines. Kafka seems content enough doing this work as it allows him a large degree of comfortability. He has a nice enough apartment, he's able to buy whatever foods he likes, his life is sustainable and easy, so he doesn't really stop to think about whether or not he's happy. That is until a rookie part-timer begins working at the agency, Rino Ichikawa. He is placed under Kafka's guidance since Rino shares a dream that Kafka used to have, to join the defense force and eliminate kaiju. It is here we learn that Kafka failed to join the defense force multiple times and ultimately aged out, meaning he could no longer even attempt to enlist. This led him into settling into his current career. Kafka's dismissiveness towards his failure comes at direct odds with Rino's values, and he tells Kafka that they are not alike. Rino will never quit until he obtains his dream. This is the moment that causes Kafka to reflect upon his situation. He questions everything. Does he have a good life? Is he comfortable? Is he even happy? As he sits alone in his apartment drinking, he thinks about the reason why he dreamed of joining the defense force. He thinks about his childhood friend, who was a highly successful officer in the defense force, and a promise he made to her. Kafka has now come to the realization that he is a failure, and due to being 32 years old, he can't even make an attempt at trying to achieve the dream any longer. He cries, wallowing in his self-pity, his sense of self-worth now shattered. He reaches for another beer, and he drinks himself to sleep. These are the first 8 pages of Kaiju No. 8 Chapter 1. After reading them for the first time, I was absolutely floored. I actually stopped reading. This manga hit different, but more than that, it was taking shots at me. Now, I have a pretty great job that allows me to live comfortable, I have a beautiful girlfriend and a nice place to live in a good neighborhood. But do I have the job I want? Am I happy just being comfortable? Is this where I thought I would be in my life at this point? Has life jaded me? Yes, it has. Now, I love my girlfriend and my home, and I wouldn't change any of that. But am I happy with work? I'm not where I thought I would be at this stage of my life, and I've failed at so many things that I can't even remember them all, but they all have taken a toll on me. They've allowed me to settle for less than the things that I dreamed about when I was younger. And that's the reality. The first 8 pages of Kaiju No. 8 slap you in the face with the cold hard reality that life doesn't always go the way you dreamed it would. You will settle for less. Like Kafka, you can easily fall into the trap of apathy, and you won't even notice. It's so dangerously gradual. It starts off simple. You start coming home early when you're out with friends. You start working longer hours at your job and try to justify it to yourself by saying things like, "This will help advance my career." When they promote someone else over you, you won't speak out and you won't quit. You don't want to lose your place in line, and you don't want to start over somewhere else. The more apathetic you become, the more it will perverse all aspects of your life until there is very little left of the person you were. This is what happened to Kafka. This is what happened to me. And this can happen to you. Rino and Kafka have to work intestine duty together on his first day. As it turns out, Rino was woefully under-equipped to handle the rigors of working on a kaiju cleanup crew, especially intestine work, and while Kafka is finding this amusing, at every turn he is there to assist Reno and make sure that Reno eats properly and equipped to handle the back half of the day. It should be noted that throughout all the comedy that occurs with this odd couple, Kafka is very knowledgeable and proficient. This degree of efficacy shows how easy it was for Kafka to begin his descent into apathy. Earlier it was said that Kafka continued to apply to be an officer until eventually he aged out. After each failure, he would return to his job as a cleanup member, his skills growing, and by the time he completely washed out, he was already great at the job, and that's when the rationalizing begins. This job is also important to society. The pay is actually pretty good, there are overtime opportunities, but underneath it all, Reno hears something in Kafka's voice, an undertone of regret. As the day draws to a close, Reno has come to understand that he wouldn't have been able to complete the full workday if Kafka hadn't been there helping him. He thanks Kafka, but before he has a chance to completely walk away from him, he lets Kafka know that the maximum age to join the defense force was increased to 33. One last chance to live his dream. Then it happens. A Yoju class kaiju appears and attacks Reno, and he's frozen in place. He's going to die. Kafka rushes towards Reno and pushes him out of the way, narrowly saving him from being bitten in half by the kaiju. Knowing that Reno is now safe, he tells him to go and call for help. Reno cannot die here if he wants to join the defense force. Reno takes off and it's just Kafka and the Yoju, and he knows he's fucked. The kaiju strike, sending Kafka flying. He asks himself how things got like this. He remembers his childhood friend who he promised they would join the defense force together. The kaiju slams his hand into the ground, crushing Kafka's right leg. He's literally staring at the jaws of death, and that's when Reno returns and strikes at the kaiju and is ready to fight until help comes. Severely injured and helpless, all of Kafka's failures flood into his mind, and he is about to bear witness to his next. His thoughts are frantic and full of self-loathing. I'm so powerless. I haven't changed a bit. I can't protect anything. Not my game console, not my friend's cat, not even the rookie from my job. Damn it! Mina Ashiro arrives on the scene and with brutal efficiency takes out the Yoju. From her perch she looks down at Kafka, disdain written all over her face. She commands some soldiers to take care of the wounded and she heads off to sweep the area. Mina Ashiro is Kafka's childhood friend, the one who he promised that he would join the defense force together with. She is everything that Kafka isn't, and as he lays in his hospital bed, he realizes that she's out of his league. Before he can dwell on it, Reno thanks Kafka for saving him and he tells him that he should try again. With a look of determination, Kafka tells Reno that he's going to try one more time. However, flying above Kafka is a tiny kaiju. The monster looks down at him and says, "Found you," then forces itself down Kaiju's throat. Reno, hearing the weird noises coming from Kafka's bed, pulls away the curtain to find a skull-faced humanoid kaiju lying in the hospital bed. Reno is stunned. The kaiju sees its reflection in the mirror and they both scream. Kafka tells Reno that it's him, but before either of them can process what's happening, an elderly patient who is walking around the hospital sees Kafka and calls the defense force. Panicked, the two men realize it's time to go. Cut to Mina. After seeing Kafka for the first time in years, she reminisces about their childhood together. Kafka told her that he would be by her side. Liar. Here we see another aspect of Kafka's apathy, how it affects the people that care about him. Mina was naturally gifted, but not above working hard to achieve her goals of joining the defense force, and she climbed the ranks quickly to become the commander of the 3rd Squad, the youngest person to achieve that rank. She is also the poster child for the defense force because of her natural beauty. The more she achieved, and the further she pulled away from Kafka in their shared goal, the more Kafka began to distance himself from her personally, until they were no longer on speaking terms. The thing is that she waited for Kafka, and he just gave up. He broke his promise. He's a liar. That's when she gets a call. A kaiju has been spotted at the hospital, and she has to neutralize it. Back at the hospital, Kafka and Reno are freaking out. Kafka's new form is terrifying the other patients, and they jump out the window before the defense force can come to kill Kafka. While they are running, Kafka's new body showcases itself to be nightmare fuel, and he begins to wonder if his dream to join the defense force is now dead. Now that he's a kaiju, in all likelihood he's a target. Once they reach a safe location, Kafka begins to sense something coming from underground. Reno thinks that this is great. The defense force will most likely have to go after it instead of Kafka, and since the area has been evacuated, there shouldn't be any civilian casualties. But he's wrong. Kafka hears the cries of a little girl. The kaiju has torn through the building that she and her mother were in. The mother is trapped on the rubble, barely conscious. The mother begs for her daughter to leave, but she won't. Right as the kaiju is about to strike, Kafka sends it flying with a left hook. He's shocked by his power, but the little girl is just as frightened by the sight of Kafka as she was the other kaiju. Kafka tries to put her at ease, but realizes that in his current form, it's not going to happen. He tells Reno to take the girl and her mother to a safe place. He's gonna fight. 1, 2, 3. Kafka unleashes an uppercut that explodes the kaiju. Kafka stands in victory as blood rains from the sky. This is the moment. Baptized in blood, Kafka is reborn. He has escaped his apathy. He sees a vision of himself and Mina standing side by side as a giant kaiju charges at them from a distance. He tells Reno that he won't be giving up. If he wants to stand by Mina's side, he's gotta get moving. For the next 3 months, Kafka works, trains, and tries to find a way to undo the kaijuification that he's undergone. However, in terms of the story, Kafka's metamorphosis is the embodiment of his new resolve in life, to not let apathy ever control his life again, and to take this last opportunity seriously, and finally become an officer in the anti-kaiju defense force. But it won't be easy. Even though Kafka's in good shape, he was only ever average, and at 30, the physical demand of the examination is going to be much worse for him. Not to mention that this year's hopeful enlistments are all Bs, but none more so than Kikoro Shinomiya, The daughter of the Director General, she is elite, trained from a very young age to be the perfect kaiju killing machine. She is the standout, and Kafka immediately finds himself in her sights, but not because he's a kaiju, but because he annoys her. And she makes it her personal goal to humiliate him before the end of the exam. It doesn't take long. During the physical portion of the exam, Kafka places 219 of the 225 applicants, whereas Shinomiya placed 5th. Kafka easily could have placed better because in the 3 months before the exam, he learned how to only turn certain parts of his body into their kaiju form. Had he done so to his legs, he would have placed first, but he understands that all the people who are trying to enlist are working their asses off to earn their spots. So if he used his power, it would cheapen his achievement and mean he could never truly stand side by side with Mina. I've talked about apathy throughout the course of this video, but I never really defined it. Apathy is when you don't care. At the start of this story, Kafka didn't really care about his life anymore, but now he cares. Even with this being his last chance, he cares enough to do it the right way. Or maybe not. Now it's on to the next stage of the exam. When Reynolds started working at the cleaners with Kafka, he had done so with the knowledge that for the last 2 years, the Defense Force was testing the recruits by having them dismantle kaiju and testing their knowledge. He assumed that if he got a job with the cleaner crew, he would give himself a leg up. However, this year, the second phase of the exam would be to neutralize kaiju. To do this, the examinees will wear the standard Defense Force suit, a suit made from the remains of dead kaiju using kaiju muscle fibers to enhance the members of the force's strength. Once the examinee puts on the suit, it will form itself to the wearer's body, and their unleashed combat power will then be assessed. Reno outputs 8%, which is actually pretty good, but in comparison to his peers, seems low. Yet again, Kikoro impresses the room, outputting 46%. Her unleashed combat power is on par with that of a platoon leader. And then there's Kafka, who outputs 0%, which causes the proctor, Soshiro Hoshina, to laugh uncontrollably. This has actually never happened before. Kafka grows frustrated with himself. There's gotta be a trick to it, and he better figure it out before the exam can end. The rules of engagement are as follows. Each recruit will be followed by a personalized drone, and they are to eliminate the kaiju. If they are ever in a situation where they will be killed, the suits they are wearing will deploy a shield. However, if the proctors are forced to deploy the shields, the result will be an immediate failure of the examinee. With this knowledge, Kafka shows an amazing sense of awareness. He tells Reno that the personalized drones must be for more than assessing kills, but likely to see how good each recruit is at adapting and working as members of a larger team, meaning that despite being in tune with Zero, Kafka can still contribute and possibly pass, especially since he's struggling to carry the standard issue equipment. Meanwhile, Kikoro is clearing the field with ease. She's not just impressing the other examinees, but the proctors as well. She's precision personified. Kafka and Reno realize that if they don't make themselves useful immediately, the exam will end without them having done anything. They take off and find a group of examinees who are already engaged in battle with one of the kaiju. They aren't doing much damage, but Kafka quickly assesses the kaiju type and its weaknesses based on the knowledge he has of kaiju anatomy. He throws a flash grenade at the kaiju, which stuns it. He then calls out to the other examinees and tells them where to aim based on the kaiju's weakness. They take that advice and take the kaiju down. As Kafka and Reno are about to move on, Kafka is blindsided by a Yoru. He's down. Kikoro arrives before he's hurt any further, taking out the kaiju. The proctors inform Kafka that they are ready to pull him out because he has some fractures and possibly some internal injuries. Slowly, Kafka stands. He won't let this stop him. He's done quitting. And he and Reno are going to finish together. Oh my god, I love this dynamic. As Reno and Kafka try to catch up with Kikoro, it's too late and she has finished the Honju, ending the exam. As the examinees are being recalled, something new arrives on the field, a humanoid kaiju, and it can talk. It resurrects the killed kaiju, and they've come back stronger. The humanoid kaiju tortures Kikoro, aiming at her extremities to completely immobilize her, then leaves her for the Yoju to finish off. Alone and ready to accept death, Kikoro hangs her head and cries. That is until Kafka shows up and transforms right in front of her and takes out the Honju with a single explosive punch. Thought I was gonna get you with another boom boom, didn't you? After some time to recover, the induction ceremony begins. All the examinees seem to pass, but notably, Kafka is not among them. Per the proctors, Kafka had the lowest score and wasn't able to draw any power from his suit. He was an unsuitable recruit. However, Vice Captain Hoshina accepts him as a cadet. In his mind, Kafka displayed a few abilities that would actually make him valuable. His presence of mind, the ability to assess a situation, his knowledge of kaiju anatomy, and the ability to quickly and accurately convey that knowledge with his teammates on the field, Kafka was able to prioritize the mission. And watching him was funny as fuck. So while Kafka wasn't in the room to be sworn in with the rest of the group, he is officially a member of the platoon. And in front of the whole group, Kafka reaffirms his promise to Mina. He will stand by her side. And from this point on, the manga is all about Kafka working with his team to become a full-fledged officer so he can make that promise a reality. What I love about these early chapters of Kaiju No. 8 is how real Kafka's apathy feels to me. I'm older, 40 if you have to know, and I've been through my fair share of shit. When I was younger, specifically in my late teens and early 20s, I had a dream. I tried relentlessly to pursue it, but I wasn't good enough, so I gave it up. But afterwards, little by little, I started giving up on other things as well. I stopped being the best friend possible to my friends, eventually cutting a number of them out. I haven't been the best partner to my girlfriend, or the best son or brother. I also stopped doing a lot of the things that I enjoyed. I chalked a lot of it up to me just getting older, but that wasn't it. In letting go of my dream, I just stopped caring about everything and everyone. When I started reading Kaiju No. 8, I was probably at my lowest point. I had a shitty job as a driver, I was working 6 days a week, and barely making what I needed to live. But like I said in the beginning of the video, I felt personally attacked by the manga. Reading about Kafka and his failures made me take a good look at my own. When Kafka was given one more chance to try, he did. He fought back against the apathy. And that is hard because once you become apathetic, you have to relearn how to care. But you also have to come to terms with yourself. In my case, I had to accept the blame. My apathy was caused by myself. I used to say, it is what it is, whenever I was confronted with something that was inconveniencing me. It was literally to the point where it sounded like a catchphrase. I needed a change, so like Kafka, when I was presented with an opportunity, I took it. I got a job at a new company, and little by little I've taken steps within this organization to improve my standing, and now 4 years in, I find myself in one of the best departments in the company. I've also taken steps to improve my relationships. I still suck, but I'm trying. Finally, I've given this YouTube thing a try. A new dream. I'm a nerd, and I always have been, and I want to be able to talk about this stuff with everyone. I want to hear what people have to say about my thoughts on these things, love them or hate them. This might not work out, but damn it, I'm gonna have fun trying. It would be amazing to be able to do this full time, but for right now, I'm enjoying this for what it is. I'm talking about my interests, and hopefully people like what I'm talking about. Those first 10 chapters of Kaiju No. 8 set up a fantastic premise for the series. They show a man who had lost himself, a man who had become jaded, his failures took a toll on him. It's a very true to life mentality. We see a man just going through the motions of life. He has a comfortable and sustainable life, but he never really wanted that. He had a dream, and because he felt his physical limitations, he eventually quit trying to reach his goal, and ultimately time passed to the point where he couldn't even try anymore, even if he wanted to. His dream died. But throughout these 10 chapters, we see Kafka's true character, a man who doesn't want to quit anymore, who wants to take his last opportunity and fight, push beyond his limitations to achieve his dreams. But now it's different. He has a support system behind him, people who want him to succeed, two in particular that I really want to highlight, Reno Ichikawa and Kikuru Shinomiya. These characters are pivotal to Kafka regaining his sense of self. Reno is the little brother who does everything right, the one nobody has to worry about because he has his shit together. But like all little brothers, he looks up to Kafka. He respects him because he sees in Kafka what other people don't. He sees Kafka's turmoil in the fact that he flunked out, but he knows firsthand that Kafka would risk his life for other people like any good KDF member. He sees Kafka's honor and stands beside Kafka. He is unwilling to let Kafka fail again. They will succeed together no matter what, and the exam shows that so perfectly. Reno motivates Kafka, and later, Kafka will motivate Reno. The bond they share is perfect. Reno is a true catalyst for Kafka breaking free of his apathy. Initially, he rejects Kafka's notion that people have limits, saying he won't ever quit. That's a gut punch to Kafka. He wants to hate Reno, but when they work together that first day, the older brother nature of Kafka comes out, and he can't help himself. He needs to help Reno get through that first day of work. From then on, these two form a bond, and the dynamic is just one of the highlights of the series. Then we have Kikuru. Kikuru is perfect in terms of ability. When she debuts, she's snarky and dismissive to those around her and takes great joy in humiliating Kafka. Kafka is just so goofy that he makes it easy. But Kikuru carries damage. Her mother, Hikari Shinomiya, was one of the strongest members of the KDF, and she died while fighting Kaiju No. 6. Because of this, her father, Director General Isao Shinomiya, has Kikuru trained with the goal of perfection, accepting nothing less from her, but in making those demands of his daughter, he neglects her accomplishments. He derides her for not being ready to move on to the next goal. Unlike how Reno pushes Kafka, in Kikuru, Kafka has the opportunity to give back. He validates her. Kafka recognizes Kikuru's strength in a way that no one else does. She needs this validation to become a complete person. She spent her whole life seeking her father's approval, but it never comes. Kafka fulfills that need just through his good nature. Kikuru learns to admire Kafka's resolve and becomes one of his biggest supporters within the KDF, especially as the series progresses. Lastly, I just want to touch on Mina Ashiro once more. Mina is a captain of the Kaiju Defense Force's 3rd Division. Mina's role in the early portion of the story is to show how detrimental apathy is to our relationships. But here's the thing, Mina still believes in Kafka. She knows him better than anyone. She knows that he's a good person and would do anything he could for someone. So when she finds out that Kafka is trying to enlist one last time, the armor she's built around herself, that stoicism, begins to crack, especially in his presence. She cracks little smiles. She has to stop herself from addressing him by his first name instead of by his rank. She's still waiting. Now it's up to Kafka to prove that he's worthy to stand by her side. And there are so many more great characters in the series, but this video was long enough already, and I think I made my point. Kaiju No. 8 is a story about how life doesn't have to be shitty. We don't have to go through life not caring. We should strive to achieve our dreams. Failure is an option, but it doesn't have to define who we are or who we become. If you're over 30, I think Kaiju No. 8 is a manga you need to read. It can resonate with you in a way that I don't think other shonen manga can. And it's one of those series that as the story progresses, continues to get better. Not to mention that right out of the gate, it's one of the best looking manga available. And just this weekend, the show ended its first season, which was a faithful adaptation by a top tier company, Studio IG. They absolutely killed it. So yeah, give Kaiju No. 8 a read, but if you can't be bothered, then watch it. Either way, you'll love it. Alright guys, before I let you go, I just want to say that I've been working on this script for 2 years. I found it very difficult to write this. Every time I sat in front of my computer and began typing, I found myself having to confront more and more of the flaws that led me into my own personal apathy. Initially, this was supposed to be the video that I launched the channel with, and it didn't happen. Now, I'm actually okay with that because I got a few other videos out of the pipeline that helped me finally come to terms with finishing this one. And I realized that I'm about as happy with this script as I'm ever really going to be, so now it's time to let you guys decide whether or not I did a good job. So I hope you liked it. If you did and you're still watching, I want to thank you for watching. I know this was a longer video than the normal stuff that's on the channel right now, but I promise if you keep watching and you start subscribing, I will make more content like this in the future. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you get notified whenever a new video drops. And guys, please absolutely leave a comment on all the videos. I really want to engage with you. Let's have a conversation about the topics that we cover here at the Hero Course Dropout channel. Until next time guys, I'm out.